Hello, everyone. Welcome to our interview today. I would like to say hi to my guest today. We will find out the perspective of other countries about historic moment and Ukrainian and Moldova interaction. Now I'm joined today by two guests via Zoom. First, we have Natalia Silenska, journalist and analyst at uBrief.
Hello.
And we are also have here Andrei Plevak, Deputy Editor-in-Chief from Update EU from Czechia. Welcome, Andrei.
Hello from the Czech Republic.
For which question I will briefly present the Romanian perspective, and then both of you, you will share how these issues are seen in Slovakia and in Czechia. So let's begin. My question number one will be about the official position of country of Romania, Czech, and Slovakia about Ukraine's and Moldova accession to the EU. Has it changed since Russia full-scale invasion? And to give the Romanian perspective, I will say so. Bucharest has been a staunch, unconditional supporter of both Kyiv and Chișinău, but more for Chișinău, let's say, because for Romania, bringing Moldova and Ukraine into EU is not just an economical goal or a matter of national security, regional stability. I would say more, if you are listening to Romanian politicians, you would think that is a big national plan, a big national project of bringing Republic of Moldova in EU. It is so important that the Romanian government agrees to accept a unification with the Republic of Moldova in the EU integration part if the EU integration part fails. Maya Sandu says that she would be pro this plan of unification. Of course, people of Moldova and Romania should agree to the idea. For that reason, it could hold a referendum about unification, but still we are on plan A, I mean the EU integration. Plan B, unification of Romania and the Republic of Moldova, is on hold. Now, I would like to hear, Natalia, how it is viewed in Slovakia, especially given the political shifts under Prime Minister Robert Fico.
Well, for a long time now, Slovakia has supported the EU accession of both Ukraine and Moldova. Gotta put a brief disclaimer here that the Slovak debate about enlargement is mostly focused on Ukraine, with Moldova being some kind of non-problematic passenger in this journey to the EU. And indeed, there's been a significant political shift from the pro-Ukrainian, pro-European governments, which ruled from 2020 to 2023, to the Russian-friendly and Eurosceptic government of Robert Fico, which has been ruling since 2023. Well, even though all of these governments support the EU accession of these countries, you can see the differences in how they communicate this whole topic. While the previous governments stressed Ukraine's fight for European values, freedom, democracy, and that its accession would strengthen the regional stability and security, Fico and his government has framed the whole debate more in economic terms, saying things like Ukraine accession would strengthen Slovakia's economics as well, particularly its eastern regions, which are now poorer because they are on the EU's external border. So all in all, Slovak government continues to support enlargement while insisting that countries must meet all criteria and the process should be merit-based without any shortcuts.
Great, thank you very much. Now, Andrei, what is the official stance in Prague? You have the same switch of political parties at power in Prague, please.
Yeah, that's true. Prague has as well has officially been supporting Ukraine's and Moldova's EU accession, both before and after the full-scale invasion. This all aligns with broader Czech pro-enlargement policy, but of course there are nuances around the timelines, reforms, and domestic politics. If we look at the official position, Czechia views EU membership for both these countries as strategic step that enhances Eastern European stability, counters Russian influence, and provides security benefits for all the parties. Czechia, when it comes to practical steps, has also acted as an advocate within the EU, sharing reform expertise with the candidates and pushing for faster progress in these talks. It has proposed practical steps like gradual integration into the EU single market that can help these countries on their path, and so on. But we have some kind of division between the government and the president. President Petr Pavel has repeatedly backed swift accession for both these countries after meeting, of course, after they meet all the requirements and procedures and so on. But when it comes to the government, we have a new one, as you mentioned, since fall last year. Andrej Babiš, representing the Patriots for Europe political wave, let's say, has become prime minister again. He has expressed skepticism about the timing, Ukraine accessing the EU. He said they are not ready and the war must end first to proceed. And he also focused on limiting direct military and financial aid or guarantees for these countries. So, however, this stance of the new government has not translated into blocking their enlargement. Czechia continues to support the process politically, with President Petr Pavel maintaining a firmly pro-accession line, the government as well, as I said.
Yes, thank you very much, Andre. Now we will move to the question 2 about political parties in all these 3 countries that oppose further EU enlargement, and how influential are they. Romania does not have a government at his moment after the collapse of the national coalition, and no perspective about when we could have one. Also, there are some discussion about snap elections if parties will not agree to a new government. There is a populist party in parliament, but it does not hold a majority. Experts' opinion are divided. Some say that is the next election it could win a majority and they form the government. Others argue that if snap election were to be held, they would not end up leading the country. The name of the party, it means gold in English, self-defines as a sovereignist party. It believes that Romania needs to be more independent from the European Union, arguing that the country accepts too much from Brussels and is therefore losing its sovereignty. This is why they call themselves sovereigns. This party frequently criticizes Europe and declares itself a supporter of Donald Trump. The Alliance for Union of Romanians claims that ours is not an anti-European or Eurosceptic party, but rather an Euro-realistic one. Our deputies believe that rapid EU accession is not possible for Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova. What about the Republic of Moldova? Ours said the only way it is the unification of Romania and the Republic of Moldova. The president of the Alliance for Union of Romanians, George Simion, stated that Romania should not longer finance the government in Chișinău and claims that too many funds have been allocated to Ukrainian and refugee. Now, Andre, let's start with Czechia this time. How I remember, you had elections last year.
Yes, and for the first time, a far-right party has become a junior partner in the government. This party, SPD, Freedom and Direct Democracy, has hard Eurosceptic views and is against any future EU enlargement. When it comes to Ukraine, their politicians are very vocal about stopping the military aid, causing obstructions, and picking fights in the government coalition because of it. However, this party is not strong enough to change the country's official stance towards enlargement, not yet anyway. Party of Andrej Babiš, ANO, is leading the way in this context and does not let SPD have too much influence in this area. There is also another party in the coalition, Motorists, but they do not have as strong stance towards enlargement. They don't block anything. So the government is partly far right, but it doesn't influence the way the country looks at enlargement in this particular moment.
Yeah, thank you very much. Same question with Natalia. What is the situation in Slovakia regarding far-right opposition or far-right parties?
Indeed, in Slovakia as well, the most vocal criticism of Ukraine's EU accession comes from the far-right parties. I haven't noticed any particular anti-Moldova voices. And one of these far-right parties are right within the ruling coalition. It's a junior coalition partner, Slovak National Party, short for SNS, which has openly challenged Fico's positive stance on the matter. SNS argues that Ukraine poses security risks for existing member states and is not ready economically nor politically for the EU membership. And further, there is a non-parliamentary far-right party, Republic. It is a part of the Europe of Sovereign Nations parliamentary group. And it also argues that the EU should resolve its own internal challenges before considering any further enlargement, and currently cannot admit such a, quote, extremely problematic country like Ukraine is. About their influence, respectively, Republic currently polls at around 12%, typically placing around third or fourth position amongst political parties, but has only a limited coalition potential, while SNS is really consistently below 5%. And it is expected to stay that way even in the next elections of 2027.
Thank you very much, Natalia. We will move to the question number 3 about concerns or risk, but also opportunities. What kind of those are raised by policymakers, experts, or business groups regarding the accession? So in Romania, while the geopolitical advantages are clear, there are emerging debates, especially among farmers, regarding competition in agriculture and how future cohesion funds will be distributed on such large nation as Ukraine and join the Union. At one point, farmers protested against Ukrainian grain entering Romania. They believed its price was too low and that it was destroying the European agriculture market. Now, as an opportunity, I would note that due to its proximity to Ukraine, Romania could serve as a hub for the country's reconstruction. However, for that to happen, the war would first need to end, of course. Back to you, Natalia. What are the main economic and political fears in Slovakia?
Well, some Slovak voices have raised concerns about the potential impact of Ukraine's accession on EU funds, agricultural subsidies, and cohesion policy. As you said, given Ukraine's size and agricultural activity and capacities, some stakeholders, including Slovak Chamber of Agriculture and Food, fear that enlargement could significantly alter the distribution of EU resources and increase competitive pressure on Slovak farmers and companies. There are also concerns about the scale of reforms that both countries, Ukraine and Moldova, need in order to join the EU. Many actors, including representatives of the current government, stress that Kyiv really needs to strengthen the rule of law and fight of corruption. Robert Fico actually very infamously and repeatedly labeled Ukraine as the most corrupt country in the world, which is not true. And maybe he could have a look at his own government. At the same time, many experts and pro-European voices argue that Ukraine's accession should be viewed primarily through the lens of security and democratic resilience in order for the external impacts like from Russia or Chinese to be held away.
Right. Thank you very much, Natalia. Go to Andrei. What are the sharpest concerns raised in the Czech Republic for the EU enlargement to Ukraine and Republic of Moldova?
There are a few of them, especially considering Ukraine, because Moldova is in Czechia often seen as more advanced and less risky than Ukraine, offering a quicker, let's say, success story. Maybe I will sound like a broken record because I will repeat what you both already said. The number one concern, I would say, is an agriculture and economic competition, because Ukraine's large low-cost grain, oil seeds, and poultry sectors could pressure Czech farmers on prices and markets. Past temporary liberalized access for Ukraine already sparked protests in Czech and regional farmers over unfair competition and imports. They do not like that. Full accession could further strain the common agricultural policy of the European Union as they see it, and require reforms, potentially reducing subsidies for current members, Czechia included. Similar problems, as Natalia also mentioned, may come in the area of EU budget, especially cohesion policy. Money to Ukraine may mean less money to Czech regions. Sometimes it is also mentioned in Czechia what the accession might mean for the functioning of EU institutions. More members might mean paralysis in the future. So let's see. An important thing I also want to mention is public opinion, because polls in Czechia show significant skepticism towards this enlargement, and it's fueled by war fatigue, migration concerns, and perception of rushed accession. And populist parties, as SPD, as I mentioned, amplify this risk, like corruption, security threats, and costs to Czech Republic, and people just react to it in the polls, as we can see.
Yeah, thank you. And that's the beauty of our program and discussion, that we are sharing the same opportunities, but the same problems, how far I see in Czech and Slovakia too. Now moving to the question number 4 about the opinions in our countries about the proposals, like Friedrich Merz, associate membership or decoupling the tracks of Ukraine and Moldova. Romania has joined the countries calling for the elimination of the EU member states' veto rights in the two essential areas, foreign policy and security. In fact, Romania has always been a loyal EU member. It has never used its veto right. I tried to find a case for this discussion, but I did not even find one. Even when it is very important interests were blocked without any real logic or argumented. Take the Schengen accession, for example, for Romania. At one point, it was blocked by Netherlands and Austria, even though using the veto was discussed in Bucharest, it was never actually applied. As for associate membership, this is addendum, as for associate membership, Romania desires the fastest and full accession for the Republic of Moldova. Although there have been no official stance on the matter, I don't believe so Bucharest would oppose decoupling Ukraine from the Republic of Moldova, especially since Ukraine's EU accession stirs up a lot of debates and dissatisfaction for a small state of 3 to 4 million inhabitants like the Republic of Moldova could be integrated very easily. Moving to you guys, Andrei, how does Prague view the Brussels debate on losing, let's say, veto rights, and what about decoupling Ukraine and Moldova?
The idea of associate membership, especially new members temporarily losing voting rights, is something Czechia does not support. My colleague David Pastor has asked Prime Minister's aide for EU matters, Milana Hrdinkova, and she said, and I quote, "We do not consider the introduction of new restrictions on voting rights as a systemic tool to be an appropriate solution, as it could disrupt the balance of rights and obligations among member states, jeopardizing unity within the EU and undermine confidence in the enlargement process and the functioning of the Union as a whole." She just sees the current rules or mechanisms as sufficient. When it comes to decoupling, we have official comment by the previous government only. In August 2025, then Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky, during his visit to Kyiv, stated that Czechia opposes a potential decoupling of Ukraine from Moldova in the accession process. He described it as unnecessary, and that's from the 2025. The shift to government involving Andrej Babiš and SPD influence has brought more caution on the Ukraine-related issues overall, but no clear shift towards supporting decoupling has been reported in the media. Focus remains on reforms and practical integration rather than procedural separation in this moment. Some Czech experts note Moldova's faster reform pace could naturally lead to divergence, but official diplomacy has prioritized joint momentum, especially to avoid signaling weakness on Ukraine.
Thank you. Natalia, what is the Slovak stance on these proposals?
Once again, I gotta put a brief disclaimer here that the Slovak public generally pays limited attention to the enlargement debate, and as a result, the discussion about the institutional reforms are very limited here. Sometimes I feel like Slovak love to talk about Slovakia the most and only. But to your question, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz proposal to create an associate membership status for Ukraine, as well as other recent suggestions as decoupling or partially substanting the voting rights, as were mentioned, were discussed and dismissed by the current government. I can actually also quote the Slovak Foreign Ministry and its statement, which it offered me. And it said that every candidate country should become a full member of the EU after fulfilling all conditions of the accession process, with all rights and obligations that apply equally to all member states. At the same time, Slovakia does not support any other form of membership or transitional arrangements. And regarding the more prominent enlargement-related issue of abolishing the veto or veto rights in future, perhaps, Slovakia's ruling coalition and even a majority of its current pro-European opposition have long been opposed or reluctant to support such kind of proposal.
Yeah, in Romania, we understand you Slovaks that you are not interested in such a big issue of EU enlargement, but still this is an interesting issue because of Republic of Moldova that ties a lot with Romania. Now, well, I would like to move forward to the final question 5. Let's talk about Russia's hybrid influence and frozen conflicts. How our experts assess Russia's threats to this process, and is there any serious talk about, let's say, Cyprus model for Moldova's Transnistria region? Transnistria is a region, separatist region from Republic of Moldova. From the part of Bucharest, in Romania, Russian hybrid warfare and disinformation are felt daily, especially regarding Moldova. Romania officials reject any Russian interference and strongly believe that territorial conflicts manufactured by Moscow should not block the sovereign choices of Ukraine and Moldova, of course, still there are some voices asking about how it will be possible to integrate the Transnistria region in the EU. But somehow the answer is simple. The economy of the Transnistria region is tied with the European market more than others. Region exports are 77, almost 80% to the EU market. Let's go to Slovakia. Natalia, how visible is this threat in Slovakia? And it is the Transnistria issue part of the debate?
It's not very visible, not because it's not here, but because our government really ignores it. Fico is really renowned for enjoying pro-Russian narratives and has always been reluctant to address any Russian threat in various areas, actually, including hybrid warfare, drones, and sometimes even during the war in Ukraine. He doesn't want to address that Russia is the real aggressor here. But Slovak pro-European voices and foreign policy experts have highlighted that Russia seeks to undermine EU support for Ukraine and Moldova, and that Moscow cannot allow other post-Soviet countries to be successful without it. It doesn't want to make this precedence visible to others. And in case of Moldova, they have also warned that Russia attempts to influence the country, its parliamentary or presidential elections have been really visible, aggressive, and arrogant also. What about Transnistria? Yes, this topic is interesting indeed, but not debated in Slovakia. A Cyprus model is occasionally mentioned, but what I would highlight is perhaps an interview I held, I think, 2 years ago with EU ambassador to Ukraine, Katarina Maternova. She is of Slovak origin, actually. And she said that if it can be avoided to not solve Transnistria issue like they did with Cyprus, it would be welcome because she thinks that it wasn't an ideal step from the EU's perspective back then.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And Andrei, what is the perspective from Czechia on Russia's influence on the Transnistria issue?
I will be brief. Czech experts see Russian hybrid actions and frozen conflicts as deliberate spoilers to this whole process, but advocate pressing ahead with enlargement as the antidote to all of this. Let's say the Cyprus model is cautiously discussed as a potential workaround for Moldova, not Ukraine, but it's not an official endorsement at all. That's from my side.
Now, thank you for your time and for joining our discussion today.